The Culture Code Daniel Coyle Book Summary. Welcome to the Culture Code Book Summary, where we'll explore Daniel Coyle's deep insights into what makes certain groups not only succeed, but thrive together. Whether you're leading a team, managing a classroom, running a startup, or simply want to build better connections, this summary delivers the most practical and surprising lessons from one of the most influential books on team culture and group dynamics. Like the video and subscribe if you want more summaries like this, sharp, insightful, and packed with real-world takeaways. Daniel Coyle began his journey by asking a simple question: what makes some groups smarter, faster, and stronger than others, even when individual talent is equal? To answer it, he studied Navy SEAL Team 6, Pixar Studios, San Antonio Spurs, Zappos, IDEO, and other top-performing teams. The results shattered old assumptions. Most of us believe that great groups succeed because of genius leaders, brilliant individuals, or motivational speeches. But Coyle discovered that what truly matters is not who you are, but how you interact. And more specifically, how safe, connected, and purposeful the group feels. In the Culture Code Book Summary, we'll break it down into the 3 core skills that define high-performing cultures: build psychological safety, share vulnerability, establish purpose. These aren't abstract concepts. They're visible behaviors patterns anyone can learn and replicate. Let's start with the first one: build psychological safety. Coyle opens the book with a fascinating experiment known as the Marshmallow Challenge. Teams of engineers, MBAs, lawyers, and kindergartners were all given 20 sticks of spaghetti, a yard of tape, a piece of string, and a marshmallow, and asked to build the tallest possible structure. Surprisingly, the kindergartners outperformed all the other groups. They didn't argue or strategize. They just built, tried, failed, laughed, adjusted. Why did they win? Because they didn't fear judgment. They didn't worry about hierarchy. They were psychologically safe. This is the first and most critical element of team culture. When people feel safe, they speak freely. They share ideas. They admit mistakes. They stay emotionally present. In elite Navy SEALs units, success isn't about toughness, it's about trust. Coyle observed how SEAL members openly admit failures, ask for help, and support one another. This behavior isn't weakness, it's strength. It shows that vulnerability is accepted, and that creates unmatched cohesion. At Pixar, every idea is considered fair game. Even junior team members can challenge directors. They use something called a brain trust, a forum where people offer feedback freely, regardless of title. What makes that possible? Everyone knows the goal is shared success, not ego. Coyle identifies subtle but powerful signals that build safety. Eye contact and body language that says, "I'm with you." Physical proximity, close but not invasive. Active listening, nodding, leaning in, repeating key phrases. Over-communication of appreciation, saying things like, "Thanks for sharing that," or "I'm glad you brought that up." Framing feedback with empathy, not authority. These behaviors create a powerful group norm. You belong here. You're valued. You can speak up without fear. In contrast, teams without psychological safety feel tense, cold, and overly formal. People stay quiet. Mistakes get hidden. Creativity dies. Progress slows. Coyle found that the highest performing groups weren't necessarily the most skilled, but they were the most emotionally attuned. The Culture Code Book Summary shows us that success depends less on who's in the room and more on how the room feels. That emotional environment is shaped by repeated, consistent micro-interactions. Every moment of listening, acknowledgement, or openness becomes part of the group's culture. And the key takeaway? You don't need charisma to lead a great team. You need awareness. Anyone can create psychological safety. It doesn't take authority. It takes humility, presence, and repetition. As Coyle puts it, belonging cues are behaviors that create safe connection in groups. One striking example came from a fast-growing software company. They were struggling with low engagement. CEO made a simple change. In every meeting, people would go around and share one thing they were proud of and one challenge they were facing. Within weeks, the mood shifted. Trust grew. Performance followed. Why? Because they started seeing each other as humans first, roles second. That's the heart of psychological safety. Optimized Insights, Part 1. This The Culture Codebook Summary reveals that strong cultures are built on safety, not slogans. Teams thrive when people feel emotionally secure, not just professionally competent. Psychological safety leads to higher performance, faster learning, and deeper trust. Emotional cues, not logic, determine whether people open up or shut down. If this first part of the Culture Codebook Summary helped you understand what great cultures are built on, like the video and subscribe. Next, we'll explore the surprising power of vulnerability in elite teams. The first part of this, the Culture Code Book Summary, we saw that psychological safety is the foundation of any high-performing team. Now we move to the second critical skill Daniel Coyle identifies: sharing vulnerability. This concept may feel uncomfortable at first. In most professional settings, we're trained to appear confident, polished, and in control. Coyle shows that real trust isn't built by projecting strength, it's built by showing humanity. He explains that when someone in a group admits a mistake, expresses uncertainty, or asks for help, they're sending a powerful signal: I trust you, enough to let my guard down. And when that signal is received and reciprocated, something profound happens. Group cohesion intensifies. One of the most compelling stories comes from a U.S. military training exercise. Commander, faced with a serious operational error, gathered his team and said, "That was my fault. I should have communicated more clearly," instead of criticism. He received support. Their team members began admitting their own oversights. The energy shifted from blame to cooperation. Why? Because the leader modeled shared vulnerability and gave others permission to be honest too. This doesn't mean dumping emotions or turning every meeting into a therapy session. It means creating space where people don't need to pretend, where they can show weakness without fear of rejection. Coyle uses the term vulnerability loop to describe this dynamic. One person opens up, and the other responds with openness. That loop, repeated over time, forms unbreakable trust. And the truth is, this kind of trust is the fuel for elite performance. At IDEO, one of the world's most innovative design firms, employees are encouraged to share unfinished work. Why? Because feedback at early stages leads to better results and requires vulnerability. Designers admit, "This isn't ready yet," or "I'm stuck on this part." That's where collaboration thrives. At Google, their most effective teams were not the ones with the smartest people. They were the ones where people felt safe to say, "I don't know," or "I need help." The takeaway: vulnerability isn't weakness, it's collaboration. In action, one practical way to introduce shared vulnerability is to ask for feedback first. Coyle gives the example of a leader who begins meetings by saying, "What's one thing I could have done better this week?" That single question changes the energy in the room. It flips the hierarchy. It says, "I'm not above improvement." Another strategy is storytelling. Coyle shares how teams who regularly tell personal stories about failures, risks, or lessons learned build tighter bonds. These aren't just anecdotes, they're emotional shortcuts to trust. And in high-stakes environments, that trust saves time and saves performance. In the San Antonio Spurs, for instance, Coach Greg Popovich doesn't just coach players, he gets to know their families, their backgrounds, their values. He makes space for tough conversations, jokes, and personal feedback. It's emotional. Engagement has helped the team stay united and consistent, even as the roster evolves. What's the pattern across these examples? Leaders go first. They show vulnerability. Teams reward honesty, not perfection. Conversations focus on progress, not posturing. Coyle warns that without this shared vulnerability, teams fall into what he calls professional politeness. People smile, nod, and say the right things, but the real problems never get addressed. That's not connection, that's performance. Performance without connection is fragile. To move beyond that, teams need moments where emotions are real, mistakes are admitted, and collaboration feels safe. Coyle cites a study from the airline industry showing that crews who debrief openly after every flight, especially about mistakes, have far better long-term safety. Records? Why? Because those moments of post-flight honesty build collective wisdom. It's the same in business, education, sports, and even families. If people can't share vulnerability, they'll hide their questions, doubts, and concerns, and the group loses power. So how do you create a culture where vulnerability is not just tolerated, but valued? 1. Leaders model it first. 2. Feedback is normalized. 3. Failure is framed as part of learning. 4. People share unfinished work. 5. No one is shamed for not knowing. This is how high-performing cultures are, built not with posters or perks, but with courageous emotional habits. Optimized insights part to this. The Culture Code book summary teaches that vulnerability is not the opposite of strength, it's how real strength is revealed. Teams that grow together make it safe to fail together. Feedback begins with leaders asking to be evaluated themselves. Emotional honesty isn't a risk, it's the foundation of elite collaboration. If this part of the culture Codebook Summary is helping you see your team differently, like the video and subscribe. Next, we'll explore how purpose clear, repeated, and emotionally resonant becomes the glue that holds it all together. So far in this The Culture Code book summary, we've seen that high-performing groups rely on psychological safety and shared vulnerability. These aren't just nice-to-haves, they're the emotional infrastructure of any great culture. But there's a third element that ties everything together: purpose. Daniel Coyle found that great groups are not just emotionally connected, they're unified by a clear, shared purpose, repeated constantly, and infused into every action. Purpose is the invisible glue. It's what tells people, this is why we're here. This is what matters most. This is who we are. And it's more than a mission statement on a wall. In successful teams, purpose is a living presence in everyday behavior, language, and rituals. At Zappos, for instance, the purpose is legendary: delivering happiness. Phrase isn't corporate fluff. It guides hiring, customer service, product decisions, and leadership choices. Every employee knows what delivering happiness looks like, and they're empowered to do it. Coyle shows that in elite groups, purpose is not vague or abstract, short, sharp, and emotional. Pixar uses simple phrases like "make it better" or "story is king," repeated constantly. These mantras keep everyone aligned, even across departments. Why does this matter? Because in complex, fast-changing environments, people don't need more rules, they need more clarity. And clarity comes from a purpose that is easy to remember, emotionally compelling, and reinforced by leadership behavior. In one example, a successful school principal transformed a struggling campus by creating a rallying cry: every kid, every day. Teachers repeated it, parents heard it, students felt it. It was simple, powerful, and consistent. Coyle calls these hyperpose environments. They're not built by chance. They're built through relentless signaling. That means leaders repeat the message, model it in their behavior, and recognize it when others act on it. One of the most powerful tools in these cultures is storytelling. Great groups tell stories of triumph, failure, courage, sacrifice that reinforce the mission. These stories are passed on and retold. They become part of the group's identity. For example, in the Navy SEALs, stories of heroism and humility are constantly shared, not to boost ego, but to anchor values. Every recruit knows what those stories mean. They carry emotional weight. Coyle explains that great cultures don't assume people will just get it. They repeat their purpose until it becomes second nature. One executive said, "We're in the business of constant reminder." Another described their job as playing the same song until everyone sings it instinctively. It works because clarity reduces anxiety, aligns decision-making, and motivates consistent action. Coyle also points out that purpose thrives on small cues, not just big declarations. A handwritten note from a leader, a public shout-out for someone who embodied the mission, a daily huddle that ends with a reminder of the goal. These small moments matter more than slogans or speeches. In one case, A hospital improved patient outcomes not by hiring better doctors, but by helping teams reconnect emotionally to their mission, saving lives. They displayed patient stories, shared gratitude from families. Purpose became personal again, and performance followed. Purpose doesn't replace performance metrics, energizes them, because when people understand the why, they give more to the how. And purpose, when shared across a group, becomes a cultural GPS, guiding every interaction, even when no one's watching. Coyle suggests using phrases that are short and sticky, easy to recall under pressure, emotional. They create pride or meaning. Actionable, they guide decisions and behavior. Examples include: be worthy of trust, act like an owner, we before me, make it better, every kid, every day. These phrases, repeated with sincerity, become more than words. They become expectations. And when people act in line with purpose without needing to be told, culture becomes self-sustaining. That's what separates elite groups from average ones. Not more talent, not more resources, but more emotional alignment, driven by purpose. Optimized Insights, Part 3. The Culture Code. Book summary shows that purpose isn't a statement, it's a living behavior. Clarity beats complexity. Emotional mantras outperform long documents. Purpose is a daily signal, not a one-time declaration. Culture isn't what you say once, it's what you repeat until it shapes action. If this part of the Culture Code book summary is helping you see leadership differently, like the video and subscribe. The final section ties all 3 cultural skills together and reveals how to put them into practice starting today. The Culture Code book summary has shown us the 3 cultural skills that turn ordinary groups into extraordinary ones. Build psychological safety, share vulnerability, and establish purpose. But how do you bring it all together in practice? Daniel Coyle emphasizes that culture isn't created in big moments, it's built in small, repeated behaviors. Every interaction, meeting, feedback loop, and informal conversation contributes to a pattern. That pattern either strengthens or weakens the group's connection. Great leaders don't just focus on results. They focus on creating the conditions for people to feel safe, supported, and inspired. That means opening meetings with personal check-ins, not just agendas, asking for feedback regularly, and acting on it. Recognizing emotional effort, not just outcomes, telling stories that reinforce values, not just policies, repeating purpose until it becomes instinctive. Coyle offers one powerful reminder: culture is not something you are, it's something you do. In high-performing groups, culture is not a static identity, it's a daily behavior system. And the leaders who build that system do 5 things exceptionally well. 1. They over-communicate belonging. In every interaction, they send subtle signals. You're safe here. You matter here. We've got your back. 2. They go first with vulnerability. They admit mistakes, ask for help, show emotion. And by doing so, they give permission for others to do the same. 3. They create clarity of purpose. They don't just state the mission once, they reinforce it constantly. With words, with actions, with decisions. 4. They recognize micro-moments. They celebrate small acts that align with values. They catch people doing things right. 5. They treat culture as a skill, not a slogan, not a vibe, but something to learn, practice, and refine every day. Coyle closes the book with a series of practical recommendations, among them, designed for belonging, especially in the first 15 seconds of group interaction. Use vulnerability loops. Respond to honesty with honesty. Create clear emotional mantras and repeat them. Listen more than you speak, especially as a leader. Make purpose visible through symbols, rituals, and stories. One story that captures it all comes from IDEO. A designer noticed that new interns were shy during meetings. She started a ritual. Every intern would share one failure they'd learned from. It became a bonding moment, a lesson, a cultural cornerstone. That's how culture works, not through policies, but through emotionally intelligent habits. Because in the end, great groups aren't defined by how they look on paper. They're defined by how people treat each other, especially under pressure, as Coyle writes. Culture is a set of living relationships working toward a shared goal. It's not something you are. It's something you do. Its final insight brings everything home. Culture is not fixed. It's not inherited. It's built choice by choice, day by day, conversation by conversation. So if you want to build a group that's motivated, united, and capable of greatness, start small. Start with safety. Lead with honesty. Speak with purpose. And repeat it every day. Optimized Insights final section, the Culture Code book summary, proves that culture is a behavior system, not a brand. High-performing groups focus on how they interact, not just what they do. Leaders don't build culture by command. They shape it by example. The secret is simple. Show up with care, courage, and clarity over and over. If the Culture Code book summary helped you understand how to build strong, motivated teams, like the video and subscribe. We bring new summaries every week focused on leadership, connection, and emotional intelligence. Because the future of work isn't about hierarchy. It's about human culture.